There you go, off and going.
So the first thing on the agenda is for us to sign in. And I would like just to do that one after the other so that it's recorded that we're here. Hello, Bill Earls, welcome.
Hi, thanks for having me.
And everyone is unmuted at the moment, but if your phone starts to ring or if you are having, who knows, children or bulldozers in your room, just push the mute button. Otherwise, we're all well.
Tom Lambert's here.
You all know where the mute button is?
Yes.
It's in the upper right corner.
Janet, hello. Hello, Pam. Hello, Janet.
Hello.
I don't see Janet here.
Oh, I see that she's here. And Terry Spring is visiting.
Okay.
So, Tom, maybe I'm just going to read the names that I see so that they're recorded. Myself, Carl Rothbart, Todd Lampert, Mickey Porta, Brian. Excuse me for smiling, Brian. You were having a.
You caught me.
All right. Marty Skrulinas, Bill Earls, David
Peterson.
Thank you. Pam Brandon, Fred Noyes, welcome. Janet Lindstrom and Terry Spring. And I mention again that Richard Rose is excused. So we have one item on the agenda. And that it has to deal with the some work being done at 63 Park Street. There is nothing else that we have listed for today. I want to ask if we can approve that agenda. Everyone who is willing to do that, say yes or raise your hand.
Yes.
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 And anyone who isn't, do not raise your hand. All right, the agenda is approved. Carl, would you want to take us through the request?
I can. We have a request to review alterations to 63 Park Street, and we have Bill Earls here, who I guess is going to present his proposed solutions, and then we will have a discussion.
Am I up?
Yep, you're up.
Okay. First, I want to give a little background that I'm not sure everybody in the commission really is familiar with David Peterson and the Onera Foundation. And of course, David could speak for himself on this better than I can, but the Onera Foundation primary focus is on historic preservation. And so David takes a broad view of that. So it's not only buildings like 63 Park Street, but even much more modern buildings. So Canaan was a perfect match for this. And this building seemed like the perfect match for this. So because the purpose, the program for the building will be to house this philanthropic organization and to have exhibits there and lectures there on primarily regarding historic preservation. So it being so walkable in the center of town and so close to the Historical Society, and also not only the house itself being so much part of that program, but having, of course, the Glass House and Fred Noyes' house and Grace Farms all seem to kind of have this happy synergy with David's intent there. So I hope you're all as excited as I am to see this going to town. The physical manifestation of that is, of course, Dick Bergman's old office. He had some hurdles to get through. I think David had hoped he could kind of step in, at least since the building was operated as a home office and as a residence. David does not intend to live there, but he hopes to have this organization based out of there. But it wasn't quite that easy. Said, we kind of were starting almost from a negative, not zero, but negative, because there were existing non-conforming issues that the town wanted to resolve. So there were quite a few code modifications and things we had to get through.
Bill, do you mind if I interrupt you for a minute there?
Sure, please.
For some background on that, the conversion from a single-family dwelling to a business use with home office was approved by planning and zoning, but never by the building department or the fire marshal, because at that time we had an interim town planner that was not sharing information.
Wow.
No fault of the applicant, no fault of Dick Bergman, no fault of anyone's. It's the fault of the town, if anyone, but we were not sharing information at that time. But just for the record, it was approved by planning and zoning, but never by the building department or the fire marshal.
Exactly. I'm so glad you clarified that, because that's a good point. And I don't think I realized even that it was just kind of partial. It was just P&Z. It wasn't the building department's approval on this. So anyway, and if you know, a lot of you have been into Bergman's office and over the years, or been around the building, and he took this one that was really in very bad disrepair, and years did all this work to it. So the inside has been, it looks very historical on the inside, but a lot of it actually has been replaced. A lot of the inside really isn't antique, as it may first give the impression of. And one of the biggest changes he did was he took part of a floor framing out of the first floor, so you could look down to the basement, created this double height space down, and that was kind of the drafting pit down there. A spiral stair going down. I'm sure some of you are familiar with that, from the first floor down to the basement level. And I mean, what's really amazing about this property, of course, is that double height space to face south. It has 2-story wall of glass there. It's this very private garden. And Dick, in later years, really emphasized his landscape architecture skills there. When David and I were working on this project, there was always this conundrum what to do with that double height space, and it really wasn't conducive to really. They're looking for more exhibit space, more wall space, and the solution ended up really framing that floor back in. So we're going to walk around that space, which once was framed in. We're bringing it back to sort of what that was, and we're getting more wall space. So, on the other hand, we also have this desire to still leave it open. So even though Bergman did this kind of modernist intervention on the house, we like to continue some of that history too. So we'll be also having a glass facade facing the garden side. So the Park Street elevation, the primary gable portico is unchanged, right? The whole seminary's street side unchanged, right? If you pull into the driveway in the far side of seminary, we will have a ramp, a short ramp to get up to that back entrance that Dick had there, handicap accessibility ramp. So the primary side that we're changing is the southern side, that very private garden side. That being said, the way, if you're familiar with the building, if you're looking from Park Street, you see the main gabled facade. And then to the lower left of that, starting from the grade, you see a long light brick wall that actually extends past the building, which helps to kind of conceal that garden, that hidden garden. And then you're seeing a porch with a heavy balustrade, which looks historic. And the far side of the porch, the depth of that porch, you see a rounded top window, a Palladian style window. And that has a roof over, the porch has a roof over it, another balustrade on top. The porch is a little unusual in that you can't get to the porch. There's no way to physically walk to that porch, not from the outside or the inside of the building. But it did create this relief in the street. It was an odd choice probably to do that Palladian window because it really wasn't keeping with the old part of the house, and it really wasn't so much a modernist intervention either. But so it's kind of between. And under the floor of that porch was actually habitable space. So behind the brick wall, under the floor of the porch was part of Dick's office. It was a one-story part. Went further back, in the two-story part. So during the renovations we had planned for this project, it really grew from the inside out. The design really grew from the inside out, trying to resolve the circulation between floor to floor and gain exhibit space. Part of that was handicap accessibility and also wrestling with fire code issues. So we wanted to contain each floor. But we needed to provide an elevator to really gain access to all the floors. You came in from the handicap accessibility ramp on the driveway side, get the building just fine. How do you get down to the lower level? Well, you go all the way around the building on the sidewalk, I suppose, and enter through the garden. That's certainly a way in that can get you to the lower level. How do you get to the second floor? So we decided we really needed an elevator just to serve all the floors conveniently.
So,
Except for
Bill,
the third floor, I'm sorry.
Bill, I'm going to interrupt you just for a minute because I want to remind us as well as you that the only jurisdiction we have is what does the building look like from the street. And so while it's, and those of us that have been in that private garden probably were impressed with it, I was, but it isn't visible from the street. And therefore, the Historic District Commission has no, well, we don't really have an interest in going around that corner, but we do have an interest in the Palladian window. And so I'm glad that you're pointing that out. And if an elevator is going to be in there, is the Palladian window going to stay?
No, in fact, so we're taking the footprint of the building, starting with that on grade, that basement, walkout basement level. We went up, so we were basically enclosing that porch level and going up an additional floor. So we are creating this tower to house the elevator. So this is visible from Park Street. I mean, you have to kind of pause a bit to see it, but it is visible. Of course, there's a stone wall on Park Street. But, you know, there's a lot of greenery, but still, it is visible. So with input we've had already, we are contemplating that even though Dick had that the white brick wall flush with the old front gable of the house, not going up straight from there, but pushing that in to create a jog there. So I'm drawing it right now. The drawings you have show it basically flush, starting from Dick's that foundation straight up. But it might be better served if there's a jog there to more kind of clearly distinguish old from new.
I'm glad you're saying that, Bill, because that's something that seeing the drawings was really a concern to me, that you were just carrying this new facade flush with the front of the building straight across. And currently, you know, you read the portico really as an object, and then the rest of the building is set back from it. And creating a continuous facade there that is visible from Park Street was really an issue for me. So setting it back would be an improvement for sure.
I give Marty a lot of credit for seeing that right off the bat. So again, the building kind of grew from the inside out, and that corner worked out well. The circulation had changed over the design process. We were trying to even use that second floor, that hallway to nowhere, I call it, on the second floor of that staircase. That was where the elevator unloaded onto at one point. So the design evolved from the inside out, but so the elevator was there for a purpose, but it kind of grabbed that corner. And also Dick already had grabbed that corner out there, but when you extend up, it was much more conspicuous at the street level.
Bill, how you doing? Todd Lampert. A couple of like preliminary questions. I saw today somebody from the Historic Commission sent over that in 2004, Mr. Bourbon's got this registered on the National Registry. Is that correct?
I believe so.
Yeah, that is.
Once you get registered on the National Registry, can you even come and ask us for a change without getting permission from them? Because this was all.
Can I jump in, Todd? So Dick applies, you may know, in order to get the designation, state designation on a historic register, it requires the approval of the homeowner or building owner. So Dick did apply for that in 2004 and was granted. And as you probably know, there are 3 designations. One is historical, one is architectural, and then one is cultural. And this building got the designation as cultural because of Max Perkins and the history of all the literature and so forth. So Dick did go ahead and do that, but that, as you may know as well, is just a designation. There's no particular protections around being on the National Register.
Yeah, the only implication would be if you were going for grant money.
Correct.
Through a government agency, and then you would have to run it by them to get approval, but you're not looking to get any grant money. So you,
Correct.
Even though it's on the National Registry, you have the ability from that perspective to do what you'd like to do.
And then I appreciate that answer. My second question I had is when I went through the application that was filed to get on the National Registry, there's a picture of the house that's not, I don't see a date on it, but it shows the house back. It's picture number 10 on it. And it shows the house without any decks off to the left side as you face the columns. Just shows one deck, and obviously the 2 others of portico were added afterwards. When they were added, do we have the permits from then on whether or not there were any restrictions on any further modifications? Because a lot of times when additions were made, they were made with restrictions. And I was just wondering if there was any permits when these modifications were made that anybody's looked at.
No.
I don't think, unless an easement was placed on it, Todd, that there would be. And we would have that in the building records. It may be a little bit top-hatted, but I believe that the people who are empowered to determine what can happen to that building is us. The Historic District Commission is the National Registry at this point.
Okay,
Yeah, if you look at the historical photos I've seen of the south side, it's been through so many changes. It really has. There's a sleeping porch there at one point. There's a long walkway entrance to a rear door at some point. It's had a number of iterations.
Well, another thing to consider with the addition that you're doing, especially as it's visible from Park Street, is to distinguish it from the historic building and maybe make the materials have it look different and be clearly an addition, as opposed to looking like, if you didn't know, it could always have been part of the original design and construction.
Absolutely. So I think it could be one, jogging it back, two, changing materials, or a combination of both.
is this, can I ask you, is this the only picture that we have that would give us an indication of what it would look like from Park Street, or are there other elevations that we could look at to see what we might be seeing?
You have
Yeah,
the architectural drawings,
Yeah, maybe I never got to see the architectural drawings, unfortunately.
Yeah, drawing A7 gives you a clear view of what it would look like.
Todd doesn't
Well,
have that. I never gave Todd the originals.
I'm sorry, guys. Yeah, unfortunately, Brian didn't have me on the list, so I didn't get an opportunity to do
Does
that.
that help you in any way?
It does.
Yes, nice.
Give me 1 second. Let me make this a little bit bigger for myself.
I'll try
Okay.
to get it closer if that's clear.
That's excellent, David.
Yeah, give me 1 second. I just need to hit a button here to figure this out. Okay, can we get that on now? I'm looking at Tom for some reason. Can I get the other one on? Where the picture is?
The other one?
Yeah, that's it. Perfect. Can you put that up? No, that's good. Can you put that?
Want
Yeah,
to put that back up?
yeah, that's great. And if you could just move it to the one side a little bit to, yeah, perfect. All right, great. And do we have any like sort of southern elevations that I could see a little bit more on an angle from Park Street, or is,
I think I do, yeah.
There is the rendering that you did
yeah.
well, right?
That's what you have, Todd.
yeah, I have the rendering this.
Yeah.
You have that, okay.
Okay. Okay,
Because the elevations are so flat, they don't really read. I thought it was important to do that rendering to capture that corner view.
Does that,
oh, that's great.
obviously it's very preliminary, so it's not,
Yeah, that's what I was looking for.
does that,
That's really helpful. I
Yes.
got it now. I got it. That's
Thank you,
great. Thank you.
David. And
okay.
thank you, Mickey, for that, for your help. I was watching 2 sets.
Can I ask the commission, thank you, by the way, I've heard a lot about most of you, and I want to say thank you, first of all, and thank you for welcoming me so openly into town, and look forward to getting this going and being part of the cultural opportunities in New Canaan. How would you guys feel about, I don't know what your backgrounds are. I know some of you are architects and so forth. And Bill and I were talking about this the other day. There was, I don't know if you know the Jewish Museum in New York City, but there was a controversy, I guess it probably goes back 15, 20 years, when they had essentially a vacant piece of land, and they were trying to figure out what to do with it. And instead of building a modern addition, they actually replicated the 1890s kind of Gothic style of the original building and just carried it across Fifth Avenue. Very controversial. As opposed to the Morgan Library, which I think it was Norman Foster or can't remember who did the addition there, which is who was it Norman Foster? I can't remember.
Renzo Piano.
Renzo, thank you. And it was a glass volume that clearly distinguishes itself relative to the older building. As we thought about this volume going up on the Park Avenue side, the elevation, there were obviously two thought processes. One was to make it more contextual and have it fit into the, mid 1800s building versus something more modern that might include materials like glass and steel and so forth. How, in general, I know it's a broad question, how would the commission feel about a more modern intervention there in terms of that volume facing Park Street? I know it's a broad question without, a sketch or anything, but how is because I'd just like to hear from you guys.
This is Marty. I don't know if you can hear me, but I, for one, would really applaud if you did a more modern intervention. The significance of the Greek revival would be elevated to a whole new level if it was distinguished from the additions. And the only way to really do that is to do a modern intervention.
Yeah, I agree with that also. I mean, we'd want to see the design of it, but I think it would be appropriate to contrast it with the historic house if it could be done well.
Paul Bayard of Columbia did a whole study and published a book on artful interventions in historic preservation. It's a good reference.
Thank you. I know Paul. Yeah, he's good. Thank you.
Yep.
Anyone else want to comment on that?
Mickey?
I'm in agreement. I don't have anything to add. I think that's spot on.
So Marty, you're thinking of something like that house on Weed Street that has the glass.
Yeah. I mean that's sort of a nice. If you're feeling that you need to be cautious and don't really want to go towards glass and steel, the house on Weed Street near Frogtown, I think is a good compromise. That glass tower clearly still feels traditional in New England, but also feels modern at the same time.
And houses, I believe, a stairwell. I
think
haven't
so.
been inside, but that's what I think. So
Right.
something like that probably would work. Now, just to be clear, our thinking that's a nice idea, and you're having it approved are two different processes, because it would have to come back to us with new drawings, and then we would put it through the ringer again.
Well, what I will say is I would be reluctant to try to art direct this too much, but I have a lot of faith, and given what I've seen so far and what I've heard so far, I have a lot of faith in this applicant. So, I mean, I agree with what Marty and Carl have said, but I'm not getting a huge uh-oh feeling here.
Well, I'm not either, Mickey, to be clear, but I
No, I hear you. You're laying out the law. You're explaining they have to come back.
I perceive that it could only be done by another set of drawings coming to us, which
Yes.
we could quickly approve.
Right.
Yes.
And Tom, couldn't we conduct a special meeting so the applicant doesn't have to wait a whole month?
Yes, we could. Yes, we certainly could.
And now with Zoom, it's probably much easier to gather everyone together for that.
Well,
Well-
I'm sure Bill can have something ready by Monday.
We were hoping tomorrow, but I guess we can wait till Monday, yeah.
No, I mean, I couldn't have hoped for this meeting to go better. Really
I'm
couldn't.
glad, and Mickey, thank you for your comments. I have to say that while the initial proposal you've seen, we submitted, I have to say, I think both Bill and I were kind of lukewarm about it, to be honest, just because it really felt like a compromise. And it really is kind of vanilla and doesn't say much. And it's kind of what was that old commercial, the Wendy's commercial? Where's the beef? You want to know, where's the beef here? There's no, that volume, it just kind of sits there. So while it's functional and purposeful, I view it, and I think Bill views it, as an opportunity to do something a little more distinguished.
Well, that's great to hear. We agree
Yeah.
with that, and it's nice to hear you have that sensitivity because it could be a lot better of a solution.
By the way, I don't know, I'm
Look
sorry,
forward to seeing it.
I'm going to diverge here a little bit. I don't know if you heard the story, but last fall, I guess we were in the house and we had pulled up the old carpets from the 1970s. It literally had been there for 50 some years. And there was fir wood under there, the small slats, I guess from the 1920s, 1910s, something like that. And I asked a couple people and I said, no, that's the floor. That's it. That's the bottom. That's it. Nothing else. Said, I know, but just my anal nature. Why don't we just kind of dig up some? Let's do a little bit. And the original pine boards we uncovered on the first floor, and which Dick Bergman didn't even know existed. They're the old, some of them are 18 inches wide and 10 feet long. They're pretty amazing. So we're going to keep those boards and
Wow,
work around them. Yeah.
that's great.
Well, thank you. I guess unless
Yeah, I
it's your
actually,
meeting, so yeah.
yeah, I wanted to add something. The pictures that I have and the plans I've looked at, they are a little nondescript in the way they are and a little, like you say, lack a bit of a wow factor. And it just seems to be there. I unfortunately, I get to walk by the house quite often, and what's there is quite a nice statement. So, I'm open for looking at not only modern opportunities or differences, but also if there's other ways to rework it in a classical way. So I wouldn't mind seeing more than one option from you guys. I think what you're doing is really noble. So, for me, I wouldn't mind seeing more than one option, but that's just me. I'm open to seeing, whatever you can present.
Todd, do you know that one on Weed Street that they were talking about?
Yeah, I do.
Okay.
Yeah, I like that. I do. I'm a big fan of the house. I was a big fan of Dick's too. So, I think it's great that you guys are trying to improve it, and the use that you're using is really great. So if there's other ideas, I wouldn't just focus maybe on one. If there's other things you're thinking, show it to us.
Okay, great.
So my imagination is that, Todd, I like that suggestion very much, and I'm also trying to figure out what challenge we're giving to David and Bill by presenting it. So I think actually having, if you do have several options, that's fine. But I certainly would invite you to pick the one that feels best to you and present it. And
Yeah, lead with your A game.
yeah,
Be excited about it.
with
Bring
what
us
you want. I mean,
your wish.
We're not here to growl at whatever you give us. And does that make sense? Do you understand what I'm saying?
Yeah, I guess, Tom, my comment was just that I didn't want to lead them down a path that's their decision, not ours.
Right.
It's your creativity that's going to be presented, and it's our job to judge whether or not that fits into the Historic Commission's idea of what's out there. So I don't want to predispose that, yes, go be modern, that's what we want. You know, it's your
I
game.
totally agree, Todd. I
Yeah,
totally agree.
it's your game.
That whoever is best, we we shouldn't prescribe.
I would say I always remain open-minded to other ideas, whatever those might be.
And if persons have time to go down and walk into the walled garden, I mean the hidden garden, from there you can really see what's going on in the inside of the house, unless you go at night. So I'm assuming we're not really trespassing if we do that, but well, at any rate, is it my understanding that at this point we have concluded the discussion with this on this property?
You may have to ask Tom if there are any public comments from other
I
people.
want to.
True.
And also, I had in mind, and there is something that I think we don't even really have to approve, but I believe that you are going to put a handicapped ramp more or less out of sight on Seminary Street.
That's the other rendering, and it's not much
Yeah.
to show in that rendering, but right. So there's that side porch, and the back
Right.
side porch, and just we have to have one designated handicap parking spot, a way to get up there. It's a matter of inches, really, maybe a foot and a half up. But I don't want, the drawings showed code requirements for handrail extensions, handrail heights, these kind of things. But they're not showing the style. So when you're standing there on site, you're going to need a handrail on the ramp, and the clear precedent is really across the street at the church of the Christian Science Church, and they have a very simple. I don't know if you can see this railing there, kind of a hand wrought photograph in the front of the church. Just a simple, old school looking hand wrought railing there. That's the historical,
Yeah, I'm always a fan of those, and there's so many variations that you can go with on that. That they work, and they're basically invisible too.
It's very low visual impact. Yes.
No, it would be my imagination again that you don't need separate. You're not in the middle of building that ramp. You don't need that approved today. Am I right? Or do you want it approved today, Bill?
If it could be, sure. I mean, do you have the renderings of that? Do you see what I'm?
Yeah, we have the renderings.
Okay.
I personally, from my perspective, thought it was acceptable as a way of providing access.
Right.
I have no issues with it.
I'd like to make a motion to accept the handicap access off of Seminary.
I'll second that.
All right.
Can I ask a question before we proceed with this? Is that something you're looking to do now, or is that something you're looking to do as part of the entire project?
It's part of the entire project.
I would say we table it until the project goes forward if it's not something they're planning on doing right now. But
Todd, if I'm not mistaken, I think the applicant's goal right now is to obtain a building permit, moreover, to begin the interior work. And
Okay.
the features such as the accessible ramp, that can be done, or probably will be done at the very tail end of the project, if I'm not mistaken.
Got it.
So you're saying it's not necessary right now?
No, Brian's right. I mean, it's like you put your front door in fairly late in a job just to kind of preserve it. So what doesn't get beat
All right.
up?
Okay.
So at that point, we're tabling that motion.
Okay.
Quick invitation to members of the public. Do you want to speak? Fred, I noticed that you're with us and I appreciate it.
Is my mic on? Can you hear me?
I can hear you, yes.
Yep.
Well, I'd like to say that for all of you, I think this has been a terrific meeting, both for David and Bill in what they're presenting and your reaction. And me as an architect come up against this question about historic versus new and how do you merge old with new. Your approach to that, it seems to me to be very responsible. So I'm delighted to hear your progress here.
Well, I appreciate that. And I want to invite you to come back and compliment us anytime.
This is also a very important building in town. It really sets a tone for a lot of the town. So to have the sensitivity about what you're doing with it, for what Bill and David are doing with it, and to your response to it is important.
Thank you for that. Anyone else from the public? All right, hearing nothing. May we have a motion to adjourn?
Tom, do we need to approve the minutes from the previous meeting? That's the next thing on the agenda, just officially.
All right, we may not have a motion to adjourn. May we have a motion to approve the minutes?
So moved.
And is there a second? Mickey or Pamela, either one of you may.
I second.
All right, you're in today. Thank you. You're in for Richard today. So we have it moved and seconded to approve the minutes. Will those in favor say aye?
Aye.
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 Anyone opposed? The minutes are approved. Now, would anyone like to move that we adjourn?
Before you adjourn, I do have one question. As far as
That's
the
Brian.
permit is concerned, do I have the commission's approval to issue the building permit for the interior work, and you're going to hold off on the accessible ramp visible from Seminary Street? Is that my understanding? I want to be clear that I can issue the building permit and keep them moving forward.
So the building permit as presented right now doesn't take into consideration changing any of the exterior whatsoever of the building?
It does, Todd. It does both. It's probably 90% interior, but there is about 10% visible from the public way on the exterior. But I'm sure that they would like to, the applicant would love to get moving on the interior at the very least until you fine tune those details with the handrail, for example, on the accessible ramp.
You have.
Well, the other thing we need to fine tune the details are what's happening on the south facade and how that setback is going to work.
Exactly
And
right.
that will affect the interior plans.
Exactly, but I don't want to hold up the building permit as a whole when 90% of the work is on the interior. If I can issue that building permit with your approval, then I would do that, and then with the caveat that no exterior work is done until the commission approves it, if that's okay with the commission.
With that caveat, that sounds fine, Brian.
Okay, so if the minutes could reflect that, then I'll go ahead and issue the permit once planning and zoning is signed off on it.
I will put it in the minute.
Can I just ask one question? If we fast forward and a new set of plans comes out, or two sets of plans come out, and we either don't approve any of them or we approve one of them, is that going to affect the interior space that we're giving a permit for now?
I would think not, Todd, because the bulk of the biggest complication with this is that it's a change in use and occupancy. And although Dick Bergman had a change in use from a single family dwelling to a business, this is a whole nother use and occupancy classification altogether, because this is going to be a museum and art gallery, which is considered an assembly use. So this catapults them into a whole other category of use and occupancy that triggers the accessible route through the primary function area, sprinkler system,
Yeah.
elevator, and so many other things, 90%, 95% of which are on the interior.
I guess my confusion is if it doesn't affect the exterior, we don't have any jurisdiction over it. And
Correct.
If it does affect the exterior, I'm not clear what it's affecting. So I'm
The
not sure how to approve something if I don't know, nobody showed me what the 5 or 10% is that would be affected right now. And does it face Park Street? And can I see it?
Todd, you're at a disadvantage because the original plans that I never gave you a copy of, I have them in my office. I'll get them to you tomorrow. So you're at a little disadvantage because I had left you off the original email distribution.
That's okay. So I'll abstain for now and let the rest of the board, since they've seen it, make that decision. I'm okay with that.
I can give them, you can approve in whole or in part. It's not an all or nothing. You can approve, you could give me permission to issue the building permit for all of the interior work with the caveat that until the exterior work is begun, that they come back and see you at a special meeting in a week.
I feel comfortable with that.
You
Yeah.
have that permission, Brian.
Thank you.
That's done. And I want to also say to David and Bill, we will act very quickly when you come back with what we will respond to what you want from us.
Thank you very much.
So thank you again. And unless somebody really protests, this meeting is adjourned.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good to see you all.
Good to see you.
Nice to see
Bye.
you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.